Thank you folks for joining us today for our virtual meetup, encouraging data curiosity and user adoption at eMoney Advisors. My name is Zachary Ferris. I'm an account executive here at Looker. I'll be your host and moderator for today's presentation. With me today, we also have Alicia, and data and analytics supervisor at eMoney Advisors. Alicia will be going over how eMoney Advisors, a leading provider of scalable wealth management solutions for financial professionals, drives data analytics and user adoption across their organization. We're just about to start, but I wanted to go over a few quick housekeeping items before we get started. So we'll have a 15-minute Q&A session at the end of our presentation. To ask questions to our presenters, please type your questions in the Q&A box and click send. We will do our best to answer all questions at the end of our presentation. This presentation is being recorded, and we'll be sending out the recording after it's over. The windows you see on the screen are all customizable, meaning you can minimize them, you can maximize them, you can move them around the screen as you see fit. If you accidentally minimize or close a window for any reason, don't worry. Click the toolbar menu on the bottom of your screen to bring it back up. Group chat is also enabled on this event. If you want to participate in the group chat, please click on the group chat icon in the toolbar menu at the bottom of the screen to activate. And with that, let's get started, and I'll pass it over to Alicia.
Thanks, Zach. Hello, everyone. Let's jump right in. So I'm not sure where you all are in the evolution of your data and analytics program, but I'm here today to talk to you about how we at eMoney got from implementation to adoption. I'll be honest with you, it wasn't pretty. We all know that data is complicated, and sometimes you feel like you won't ever get it across the line. If that's how you're feeling right now, it's okay. I know the feeling. The theme of my talk today is 100 failures that led to success. So where did we start? This slide is straight from Gartner, and it outlines the typical data and analytics journey. You start with simple reporting, move into data exploration, and then on to self-serve analytics. Once you're comfortable there, you get predictive and eventually prescriptive. If we rewind a year, eMoney was on that very bottom step. Reporting was happening, dashboards were being created, but there was no centralized data and analytics program and no common data language to take us up the stairs. So why did eMoney employ resources to create a data and analytics program? Well, before we can get to adoption, it's really important to understand the why. The need for a data and analytics program became obvious as the organization shifted from a siloed product-focused mindset to a united client-first one. Yesterday, we were product-focused, and that meant that each department was choosing tools to create efficiency and effectiveness within their own sphere. But there was little cross-functional synergy. While client-first has always been our goal, it was impossible to achieve with the disparity between groups. Over the past 18 months, we've shifted to unite the entire organization against a single roadmap. And the data and analytics program is a key piece of the architecture of client engagement. From our day-to-day operations, if our data was not joined, governed, and accessible first. But the first step to creating that single source of truth that would allow us to be speaking the common language was choosing the right tools. And that brings me to our tech stack. Our selection criteria was pretty simple. We wanted a cloud-based solution that allowed for a fast ramp time and a low headcount investment. We needed governance at all levels, and of course, an emphasis on security. Our solution consists of 3 highly integrated components. We chose Etleap as our transformation layer. They create the connections to our various sources, and we decide what objects and data points are piped into Redshift, our choice for a data warehouse. And then, of course, we chose Looker. We were focused on the many ways to share the data from Looker, really allowing us to put data in the hands of all eMoney employees so that they can make data-driven decisions, whether it was straight in Looker from a scheduled report or an embedded dashboard in Salesforce. I mentioned that governance is a focus area for us, and we use LookML to create that single source of truth, ensuring that when someone from sales pulls a metric and someone from marketing pulls that metric, they're getting the same number. And everyone is really understanding what that metric means, leveraging descriptions in Looker to further build out that common language. Our goal was all questions pass through Looker, and everyone gets consistent and correct answers. But this is where the story gets interesting. The entire tech stack was in place and ready for action in only 6 weeks. So as you can expect, everyone immediately jumped in to use the data, right? Well, no. Unfortunately, that was far from our reality. The truth is, the user adoption journey was a lot more grueling than the technology journey, and a lot of hard work had to be done to make it a success. So what did the experts recommend? First, we had a cross-functional team of 15 head up to New York for a kickoff at the Looker office. We talked through use cases and how we envisioned Looker working for us. While we had lots of fun meeting the dogs at the Looker office and stopping for a drink before getting on the train back home, ultimately, the trip was a failure when it came to adoption. Why? Well, the trip was a little bit too soon. It was before we had Looker up and running, and so no one could immediately use the data that we had discussed. What next? We identified people from each department that we wanted to target to be a part of our initial user group. I held one-on-ones, asking how they saw Looker working for their team, and then we pulled the group together to be part of a data literacy kickoff. We had an entire half-day agenda that included an interesting story about how Netflix commits to shows based on data prior to even running a pilot, and a video on data-driven decision-making, citing the famous Philly special play from the Eagles' Super Bowl win. Now, for those of you that don't know, eMoney is based out of Radnor, Pennsylvania, only 20 minutes from Philly. So there were lots of passionate Eagles fans in that room, and we were sure that this story would hook the group on data and get them excited to use Looker. The kickoff was held in April of 2019. Here we are, more than a year later, and I can definitely say that this too did nothing to increase our adoption. But why? Despite the one-on-ones, this group was a little bit too broad. And while the interest was there, the understanding and trust in the data was lacking. So people stuck to their Excel sheets or their Salesforce reports. Our next attempt was office hours. We set up a weekly meeting that allowed users to drop in and ask any questions they had about Looker or data in general. Our average attendance was 1, and it was the same person almost every single week. We got to give Bill a shout out. He's still one of our top users today, but overall, another fail. Why? At this point in the adoption journey, office hours were a little bit too open-ended, and users couldn't get that one-on-one time they needed to build trust in the data. So we tried a roadshow, presenting to each department in the organization about who we were and how we could help them. We tried newsletters, outlining what data was available and what progress had been made. It felt like nothing was working. At this point, you're probably wondering why Zach and our friends at Looker are letting me talk to you today. There were plenty of times throughout the past year that I was feeling the same confusion and doubt. I knew we had so much value to provide to the organization, and I just didn't understand why people weren't jumping out of their seats to work with us. I mean, we tried everything the experts recommend and still had no success. Lucky for us, and lucky for you, this isn't where the story ends. But we did fail a lot of times, and while it was happening, that's all it felt like. But hindsight is 20/20, and looking back, what we thought were failures were actually some small but compounding wins. Every fail was a chance for Looker and the team to be socialized around the organization. Prior to Q2 2019, a centralized data and analytics program didn't exist at eMoney. So each time we put ourselves in front of a group, whether it was our data literacy kickoff, roadshow, office hours, we were advertising ourselves as a team and building important relationships. Slowly but surely, Looker started to become a brand name as well. And more you would hear in the hallways or in meetings, hey, is that something we could use Looker for? Another big win that was hard to see at the time was the ability for the team to start anticipating the future needs of the organization. We were able to use the time with less than stellar adoption to really learn, understand, and validate the data, build out our explorers for core analytic needs, and start anticipating the next questions that would be asked. But besides those unexpected wins, what else did we change that made data and analytics a success at eMoney? A major key was getting data-driven thinkers into the right roles. When we launched in 2019, the organization was growing at an incredibly fast pace. And in some cases, we were going after the wrong people when trying to increase adoption. People were being pulled along for the ride instead of helping us drive and promote the program. As the organization matured over the course of the year, we were able to identify the key partnerships that would help us win. We leveraged many hours of one-on-ones to solidify those partnerships, doing tool training as needed, further building out explorers, and overall building trust. These new partners were excited about data. They brought a vision for their analytic agenda and were ready to socialize their findings around the organization. These partners became power users, and these power users became the spokes in our hub and spoke data and analytics model that allows us to provide value across the entire organization today. The hub, that's us, our mighty team of 3. I mentioned earlier that looking back, the ability for our team to anticipate the organization's future data needs was a huge, unexpected win, and something I would recommend building into your plan. Even now that we have full user adoption, we're able to support the organization because we're one step ahead of our users' needs. The majority of requests can be handled with little to no new Looker development. And while we know that won't always be the case as we continue to scale, it has allowed us to meet the needs of our new and enthusiastic users with very little lag time. So who are we? First, we have Tiffany. Early on, Tiffany recognized the lack of data governance of our information systems data and has since created a data governance program from scratch that has complete leadership buy-in and is really yielding some pretty amazing results. Nothing that we do in Looker would be usable if it weren't for her work. And then we have Jess. We're celebrating her 1-year anniversary with eMoney next week, and we could not be more excited to have her. She works on all things Looker and is able to translate data vision into analytic reality, which has been key to our success. Lastly, there's me. I navigate the team through the needs of the organization, unite cross-functional teams under one analytic agenda, and turn stakeholder vision into results. Now for the spokes, our power users, ranging from VPs to analysts and everything in between. Our spokes sit in different departments: finance, client services, sales, marketing, anywhere, and are not only Looker power users, but real data drivers. They bring vision for our analytic agenda, build looks and dashboards, socialize insights, teach their teams how to access data, and allow our team of 3 to support the entire organization. But the people are only one part of the equation. Even with the right spokes in place, you need a solid framework to continue to make progress and spread data-driven thinking throughout your organization. So how do you set that wheel in motion? First, you need reporting vision. Sounds obvious. But in the beginning, we missed the mark on this crucial step. Even though we created explorers with targeted dimensions and measures, just like you're taught, people were hesitant to use them until they had a very specific use case. My advice: start small, even smaller than you think. Recreate an existing report that is widely used and work closely with your data drivers as you build and they validate it. This step helps to build trust in the data, the tool, and the team. Next is promotion. Once your data driver feels comfortable with the output, work with them to figure out the best ways to share the data, while also creating awareness of what else is available. Consumption follows naturally. Once people understand what exists and where to find it, they're able to self-serve and take advantage of standardized views. Exploration comes when consumers start asking questions. Things like, what if we looked at this by territory? Or what if we had usage into the view? You'll know your adoption journey has been a success when people start taking standard views and not only making decisions with the data, but also asking new questions. And then the cycle repeats itself. You take the new vision, build and validate, promote, consume, explore, and back around you go, keeping your hub and spokes tightly integrated every step of the way. So where are we now? And where are we headed? We saw this slide at the beginning, and we're happy to report that we've taken a few big steps up the stairs with the help of our spokes and our framework. Self-serve analytics is the norm, and more importantly, data-driven questions are being asked, and data-driven decisions are able to be made. Our next step is to build on the progress we've made by moving into predictive analytics. We just kicked off a project with a few data scientists, and we're excited to see what we'll learn. So what are our takeaways? First, be patient. Don't expect adoption to happen overnight. It's a massive undertaking, so keep trying, and don't be afraid to laugh at your failures. You'll have them, but that's okay. In the end, you'll realize they were part of your success. Second, find your spokes. Use your time and energy to build the right partnerships. Leverage the data drivers at your company. They're out there, and you won't be successful without them. Last but not least, start small. Recreate a report you have in Salesforce or Excel and see it through all the stages of the framework. Rinse and repeat. I did include a usage chart from Looker to show you that it's real. We really have won the user adoption game. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Alicia. Appreciate you taking some time to present today. Thanks, everybody, for joining here. This brings the formal presentation to a close, and then we'll open this up to Q&A. Just a quick reminder for everybody, if you have a question, please type that into the Q&A panel, and we'll be happy to answer that question. So looks like we have a few here. First one that I'm seeing, and Alicia and Jess, maybe you can help here. What are some of the biggest learning curves you and your team or your organization have faced in really implementing a BI stack?
Yeah, and just for everyone else's awareness, I do have Jess on with me today to help answer some of your questions. So I can take that one. Some of the biggest learning curves, really, as we talked about in the presentation, trust is a huge piece of the puzzle. Finding the right people was our blocker. Getting the right people and building that relationship and that trust with them is really how we got across the line. So, when people start using a tool like Looker, they feel like they're giving up a little bit of control because some of the aggregates that they're used to doing in Excel are now happening in that LookML layer that your teams would be controlling. And so they really need that one-on-one time and that work together to start feeling confident and trusting in the numbers they're getting.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, that's super helpful. Another one from the audience here. How did you get your company to adopt a whole BI stack all at once?
Another good question. We really recognized that it was hard to make any of the strides we wanted to make with our business without this. We had so much data, but it was all living in separate systems. And so any sort of cross-functional, cross-system reporting that we wanted to do was pretty challenging, if not impossible. And so we're very fortunate that our leadership recognized the need for an entire BI stack and a data warehouse to let us make that investment and and be able to make better business decisions.
Yeah, that's helpful. Any context on how you guys, started to socialize that with the executive team? I think that would be helpful.
That's a great question that I can't answer. It was before both Jess and my time at eMoney that they actually set out on the search for what tools we wanted. But, I know my leader was passionate about this from her first day at eMoney. And so, she worked with our leadership team, our entire C-suite, and really made the case for why this was necessary. Just explaining how we could not get the insights we needed to run the business the way we wanted to without it.
Got it. Helpful. Another one from the audience here. So you mentioned predictive analytics, and AI, things that are kind of down the roadmap for you. How does Looker fit into your predictive analytics strategy?
Sure. I'm going to let Jess take this one.
Hey, yeah, so honestly, we're at the very beginning of our predictive analytics journey. So right now, we're really using Looker to kind of onboard those data scientists. It's a very easy tool to use and kind of get an understanding of the data. We're not really sure how it'll look down the line, but right now we're thinking of getting our data sets from Looker, just because it might be a little bit easier to join the data there, work with the aggregates and measures that we already have built. So the easy answer is that. The long one is we're not really sure down the line how exactly that's going to look.
Awesome. Very helpful.
Add anything to that, Alicia?
No, I think that nails it. I talked a lot about single source of truth, and that really is Looker for us. And so we certainly don't want to recreate the wheel when starting to think about predictive analytics. So as much as we can pull directly from Looker and not, be recreating that within Redshift, we want to do that. So we're, like Jess said, taking our first steps into it, but I think Looker will play a key role.
Awesome. Thank you. Another question here. So how specifically was Looker helpful in driving adoption for your organization? Any context you have on that would be helpful.
Yeah. Jess, do you want to talk to the key points of Looker and how that helped us?
Yeah. So I think the big one is just ease of use. Like I said before, it was really important for us to be able to kind of get specific data sets for certain groups, because like Alicia said, we're working with all the different areas of the company. So the data sets that sales needs to be looking at versus finance and customer service are all different. So being able to target those explorers for groups was very important, and only exposing the necessary fields. And then it was also very important for us, obviously, to be able to join together all of our different data sets. We have data coming out of a ton of different systems. So the ability to gain insights from all of them together in Looker in one place was very important for us. And then I guess to expand on that, the scheduled reports has been really beneficial for us in kind of gaining traction with some of our key spokes, like Alicia said. So yeah, all of the above.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. So you mentioned, being able to automate reports out. Were there any other feature sets that you all used to drive adoption internally?
Yeah, so those scheduled reports we're using for a lot of our big dashboards. We have a couple embedded dashboards in Salesforce. So I'd say those are the two big ones.
Got it. Awesome. That's really helpful. Another one here we have, so who owns Augments and LookML? Do you anticipate onboarding business users onto LookML?
Great question. So right now our team owns all things Looker on the development side, so including LookML. We do have one sort of semi-team member who actually sits in a different department and on a different team, but he does help out on the LookML side. We've kind of gone back and forth on, do we want to onboard more people to the development side of the house within Looker, and right now we don't have plans to do so. The team will certainly be expanding at some point, but right now we're really keeping it small. It helps us to keep consistency and standards in place. We utilize a lot of the security features in Looker as well, and so kind of the less hands in the pot for us, the better right now. But obviously, as we expand, it'll be important to consider those standards and the documentation around them. But I don't see us really opening up to business users, probably just anyone we onboard onto our team.
Yep, makes sense. So what kind of enablement did your team do to engage early adopters and maybe people who you saw as champions internally early on?
I think I said 10 times throughout the presentation, but that really was the key to success for us. We tried some of the larger group training. Like I mentioned, we tried office hours, but maybe a little too soon in the journey. And so one-on-ones were really how we engaged those early adopters, our power users, our spokes, and built that trust, built those relationships, and made sure they had all the answers they needed about Looker and just the data in general. So I said it a bunch, and I probably can't say it enough. One-on-ones were just a huge key to success.
Yeah, awesome. That's a really good strategy. So, we're all kind of living in the age of working from home and COVID-19, but would be happy to and interested to hear, how has COVID specifically affected your business, and how has Looker played a role in any kind of operations that you've had?
Yeah, so we've been pretty fortunate not to be too affected by everything going on, besides, of course, that we're all in our houses right now. But Looker actually has played a huge role in allowing us to track and be able to tell you that, there hasn't been a huge impact. So we, of course, we're a subscription business, so we track things like cancellations, churn in terms of upgrades, downgrades. We've been able to track all of that. If any promotions that we've done through this time, and we've done a couple, we're tracking how those are performing based on our goals, and also just over time what we're seeing. We, of course, track usage in our platform to see if there's anything standing out there, either good or bad. And Looker has allowed us to do this, and not only do it, but do it in one spot. So we have an executive level dashboard that gets sent out every week so that they can keep an eye on these trends as well. And then, dashboards with way more detail that we use a little bit more operationally. So Looker has been a huge help, from the day we went remote, probably a day later, we had this dashboard up and running, and we're ready to be tracking. So very fortunate to not have too many impacts from COVID, but also very fortunate that we can keep an eye on it.
Awesome. Well, we're really happy to help support your organization, and we really appreciate both you, Alicia, and Jess, helping and talking to the group. And thanks everybody out there who stayed on and learned a little bit about the maturity that eMoney has gone through. Like I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, this will all be a video that we can send out so you can review later on. But that concludes our session for today, and I want to thank everybody for joining us.